Okay, so you want to own a roofing company. Buy a truck, hire four guys, print business cards, and start knocking on doors after every storm that rolls through the county. Every house in America has a roof. Every roof eventually fails. And every homeowner has an insurance company standing behind them, ready to write a check that isn't coming out of their own pocket. Sounds simple. It is not simple. And the story of how roofing companies actually make money and how they actually die is one of the strangest stories in all of small business America. Because underneath every truck and every ladder in this industry, there are two completely different businesses wearing the same tool belt, and only one of them survives past year 5. The one that understands the roof isn't really what it's selling the paperwork underneath it is. That's the difference this video is about. Walk onto any roofing crew site, and it looks identical from the street. Same trucks, same ladders, same nail guns, same guys in harnesses moving shingles onto a pitched roof. But there is no such thing as a roofing company in the way most people picture it. There are at least 3 completely different businesses hiding under that same word. Each one has different customers, different margins, different sales cycles, different legal risks, and different reasons for going out of business by year 3. Let's break them apart, because if you buy the wrong one for who you are, the industry will find out before your bank account does. The first business is retail residential roofing. This is what most people picture when they think of the industry. Homeowner needs a new roof, calls 3 companies, picks one. You bid the job, order shingles from the local supply house, send a crew for 2 to 3 days, collect a check at completion. The average residential roof in America runs between $8,000 and $22,000, depending on square footage, slope, tear-off complexity, and material grade. Gross margins in retail residential typically land between 6 and 12%. Read that again. 12% is the ceiling on a good year. The reason those margins are so tight is competition. Every county in America has at least 100 roofing companies fighting for the same homeowner Google search. You are not really selling roofs. You are selling the ability to convert a $50 pay-per-click lead into a $14,000 closed contract without burning out on marketing spend. That is the entire game. And most first-year owners lose it not on the roof itself, but on the cost of getting the phone to ring. Now, the second business. Insurance restoration roofing. This is where the industry gets interesting, and where most of the drama lives. The customer here is technically the homeowner, but the actual payer is a residential property insurance carrier. State Farm, Allstate, USAA, Farmers, any of about 20 large names. A homeowner's roof gets damaged by hail, wind, or a fallen tree. They file a claim. An insurance adjuster comes out, walks the roof, estimates the damage. If the damage crosses a threshold, usually 25% or more of the roof surface, the carrier writes a check for a full replacement instead of a repair. That check does not go directly to the contractor. It goes to the homeowner, minus their deductible, and the homeowner then endorses it over to whoever does the job. Insurance restoration gross margins run 3 to 4 times higher than retail. 25 to 40% is normal. In peak storm seasons, higher. Why? Because the estimating language is different. Insurance jobs get priced in Xactimate, a software the entire industry uses that lists thousands of line items at inflated retail prices. The contractor can also submit supplements. If they find additional damage during tear-off, rotted decking, ice and water issues, flashing rot, they invoice the carrier for it separately. Every supplement is pure margin on top of the original scope. That is where the real money in insurance restoration lives, not in the roof itself, but in the paperwork on top of it. An adjuster shows up with a $12,000 base estimate. The contractor closes out at $16,000 or $17,000 once supplements are approved. That gap is the entire business. Insurance restoration companies do not compete on price. They compete on how well they know the estimating software and how aggressive they are at supplementing. There is a fourth informal category worth naming, the storm chaser. That is not really a fourth business. It is insurance restoration operating in a specific mode, transient, seasonal, out of state. The third business is commercial roofing. Warehouses, retail centers, apartment buildings, industrial plants, schools, and municipal properties. Nothing residential, no homeowners, no Xactimate. The average commercial roof runs between $40,000 and $500,000 per project. Some go into the millions. Sales cycles are 3 to 12 months long. Payment terms are net 30, net 60, sometimes net 90, and often held back with 10% retainage until the final punch list is signed off. You cannot walk into commercial roofing from residential. You need bonding capacity, a licensed project manager, OSHA training documentation, and general liability limits at least 10 times what residential requires. Gross margins in commercial land between 15 and 22%, higher than retail residential, lower than insurance restoration. But the ticket sizes are larger, and the customer relationships repeat. Here is the structural observation. On paper, all three of these businesses do the same thing. They put shingles or membrane on top of a building. In reality, they run on completely different fuel. Retail runs on marketing spend. Insurance restoration runs on storm data and Xactimate literacy. Commercial runs on relationships and bond capacity. The two guys on the ladder look identical. The businesses underneath them are running on entirely different economics, which is why most first-year owners fail. Not because they are bad at roofing, but because they mixed the three models without knowing they were mixing them. They took an insurance restoration job at retail pricing. They took a commercial job without the bond. They ran marketing spend at insurance margins and burned out in 6 months. You cannot be all three at once. Not in year 1, not in year 3, probably not ever. Every successful roofing company in America is essentially one of these three, with occasional side jobs in the other two, never as a core business. Now, before we talk about which one you should pick, we need to talk about the layer of costs that swallows most people before they ever get to that decision. Now we get to the part of this business that quietly destroys most first-year owners. Not the roof, not the customer, the insurance certificate. You think the expensive part is the equipment. It isn't. A used dump trailer runs $6,000. A decent nail gun costs $300. A pickup truck with 60,000 miles on it costs $20,000. Total capital to physically start a roofing crew, under $50,000 in cash. That number sounds terrifying to some people, doable to others. Either way, it is not the number that closes roofing companies. This next one is. Workers' compensation insurance for roofers in the United States carries the highest premium rate of any construction trade. Roofing sits in workers' comp class code 5,551 inches most states. Depending on which state you are in, the rate ranges from about 25% to over 75% of every dollar of payroll you pay a crew member. Read that again. For every dollar of wage you pay a roofer in Florida or California, you send another 50 to 75 cents to the workers' comp carrier. Compare that to carpenters, whose rate typically sits between 8 and 12%, or electricians, closer to 5%. Roofing is in a category of its own. Why? Because roofers fall, and when they fall, the medical bills, disability payouts, and legal liability that follow are catastrophic in a way no other trade sees. Insurance carriers price that risk into every quote, every state, every year. There is no negotiating around it. There is no discount for being careful. The rate is the rate. Every roofing employee comes with burden as well. Payroll taxes, unemployment insurance, health benefits. Real hourly cost is usually 1.4 to 1.6 times the wage number on the pay stub. Now add the second layer. General liability insurance. Standard limits for a roofing company are $1 million per occurrence, $2 million aggregate, often $5 million if you want commercial work. Premiums for general liability in roofing run $6,000 to $15,000 a year for a small crew. Excess liability adds another $2,000 to $8,000 on top. Add commercial auto insurance on every vehicle in the fleet, and total insurance overhead alone eats 20 to 35% of gross revenue before your first subcontractor. Add dumpster fees for tear-off disposal, $400 to $900 per job depending on the county landfill. Add fuel, which for a fleet of 3 trucks runs $1,800 a month. Now the third layer, and this is the one that finishes people, the experience modification rate, or EMR. EMR is a multiplier applied to your workers' comp premium based on your claim history. A clean company has an EMR of 1. A company with one bad claim can push to 1.4 or 1.6. At 1.6 EMR, your workers' comp premium is 60% higher than baseline for the next 3 years, regardless of whether you had any other incidents. 1 fall, 1 hospital visit, 1 dispute over whether the harness was clipped correctly. 3 years of paying nearly double insurance on every payroll dollar. That is not overhead. That is a second business you did not know you signed up for. Now let's talk about material cost volatility. OSB decking, asphalt shingles, and metal roof panels are priced daily on commodity markets tied to oil, timber, and steel. Between 2020 and 2024, asphalt shingles rose 40%, dropped 12%, rose again 18%. OSB decking swung as much as 60% inside a single 12-month window. Your customer gets a quote today. Materials arrive in 3 to 6 weeks. Between quote and delivery, Your gross margin on that job can move by 6 to 9%. Some contractors write escalation clauses into their contracts. Homeowners hate them. Most retail customers refuse to sign them. So the contractor eats the volatility. Now, cash timing. This is the one nobody sees coming until it has already arrived, and by then it is too late to fix. Material suppliers extend you a 30-day account after you have proven track record. Before that, they want cash on delivery. Payroll runs every 2 weeks. Insurance runs monthly. Retail customers pay on completion, which is usually 1 to 3 weeks after start. Insurance restoration customers pay after the carrier releases funds, which can be 60 to 120 days. Commercial customers pay on net 60 or net 90, with 10% retainage held back for another 60 days after that. If your average job costs $12,000 in materials and $8,000 in labor, and you are running 3 to 4 crews doing 1 to 2 roofs a week, the arithmetic of the cash gap starts to matter within the first 90 days. You need working capital reserves that most first-year owners do not have. The truck, the tools, and the crew are the easy part. The insurance certificate is where most first-year owners quietly lose. There is one more number nobody wants to talk about: the warranty tail. Every roof you install carries a workmanship warranty of 5 to 25 years. That is not a profit and loss line item. It is a contingent liability sitting on your balance sheet, waiting for a leak call 3 or 5 years after the check clears. Most owners forget it exists until the first claim arrives. By then, the crew is gone, the paperwork is scattered, and the customer has your phone number. None of this is decoration. This is the reason roughly half of all new roofing companies fail inside their first 2 years, according to industry loss run data from major carriers. Now we get to the part that explains everything else. Why the guy down the street with the fancy truck disappears every 3 years, and where the money he made actually came from. The industry is not one business. It is at least 2 economies operating side by side, and only one of them is really about roofs. Retail roofing is a construction business. You make money by installing shingles for less than the homeowner agreed to pay. Margin is thin, competition is fierce. The customer has price shopped you against 4 other bids, and every dollar you save on labor or materials becomes profit, one nail gun magazine at a time. Insurance restoration is a completely different business. You do not make money by underbidding competitors. You make money by decoding what the insurance carrier owes the homeowner and standing between the two of them. The homeowner has a policy. Under that policy, in the event of hail or wind damage, they are entitled to a full replacement of a damaged roof, minus their deductible. The insurance company, however, is not eager to write that check. Adjusters are trained to look for minimum viable repair scopes rather than full replacements. Missing granules, cosmetic dents, isolated damaged shingles, those get denied or downgraded to a partial repair worth a few $100s. Enter the insurance restoration contractor. Their job is to look at the same roof and produce documentation that pushes the claim from partial repair to full replacement. Photos of every damaged shingle, diagrams of the storm pattern, test squares, exactimate line items for every measurement, written scope submitted directly to the adjuster or to the carrier's central desk. If they win the argument, the payout jumps from $1,200 to $15,000. The contractor gets the full amount, minus the homeowner's deductible. That is not construction. That is claim conversion. And it is the actual product of insurance restoration roofing. Read that again. The product is not the roof. The product is the successful conversion of a partial scope claim into a full replacement payout. Now stack on top of that a second layer of margin. Supplements. This is where the real money in insurance restoration lives. Once the roof is approved for replacement and the tear-off begins, the contractor documents everything they find that was not in the original scope. Rotted decking, ice and water barrier damage, chimney flashing rot. Each of those becomes a supplement, an invoice sent back to the carrier for additional payment. A typical supplement adds $2,000 to $5,000 to the original claim. Aggressive contractors will push $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 in supplements on top of a $15,000 claim. Their revenue on a single roof can end up at $25,000 or higher. Their actual cost to install, usually $7,000 to $9,000 in materials, $3,000 to $5,000 in labor. There are contractors known in the industry for supplement stacking, finding 40 or 50 distinct line items on a single roof replacement. Revenue per job runs 3 times industry average. Their skill is not roofing. Their skill is Actimate literacy. They are essentially insurance claim engineers who happen to own a nail gun. Actimate itself has become one of the most fought-over pieces of software in American small business. Contractors compete on how many line items they can extract for a single job. You do the math. This is not an accident. It is the business model, and it explains everything you are about to see next. Now comes the ugly part. Because the moment you understand the arbitrage, you can see how it turned into an industry-wide fraud problem. Enter the storm chasers. When a major hail event hits Texas or Oklahoma or Colorado, an entire ecosystem of transient roofing operators descends on the affected counties within 72 hours. They rent short-term office space, they register a local LLC, they hire local sales reps, they set up call centers, and they start knocking on every door in the impact zone. Their pitch is refined by thousands of iterations. Free inspection, no obligation. We will handle everything with your insurance company. Just sign here to authorize us to speak to the adjuster. There is one more line in the pitch that closes the sale. Contractors offer to help with the deductible, sometimes with a rebate, sometimes by inflating the invoice. That practice is illegal in most states, considered insurance fraud in Texas, Colorado, Florida, and a dozen others. Every year, homeowners are convicted alongside their contractors. But it happens tens of thousands of times per season. Because it works. Because it turns a $1,500 deductible into a free roof. And the homeowner sees no reason to say no. The homeowner signs. The contractor takes over the claim process. The homeowner never sees the actual insurance paperwork. 6 weeks later, a new roof is installed. Everyone is happy. Some homeowners also hire a public adjuster, a licensed intermediary who takes a percentage of the claim payout in exchange for advocating on their behalf. Public adjusters and roofing contractors often work in overlapping networks. Referral fees, kickbacks, and estimator collaboration all sit in a legal gray zone that state insurance departments periodically try to regulate. That is the model working when the damage is real. Now let's talk about what happens when the damage is not. Some storm-chasing crews are not waiting for damage, they are creating it. Documented cases across multiple states describe contractors climbing roofs during inspections and using tools to fabricate hail marks. Ball-peen hammers, ice chunks in socks, weighted rollers, all producing marks that look convincingly like real hail impact to a rushed adjuster. The homeowner sees a damaged roof. The carrier sees a claim they need to pay. The contractor installs a new roof they did not need to install. Everyone thinks they won, except the insurance company that just paid out for a roof damaged by a socket wrench. Multiply that by 500 homes in one zip code, one storm season. That is where fraud investigators come in. State attorneys general, FBI insurance, fraud task forces, carrier special investigations units. Every year, they open hundreds of cases against storm-chasing operators. But the structure defeats the enforcement. By the time investigators subpoena records, the LLC is dissolved. The office is empty. The sales reps have moved to the next state. The homeowner is left with a new roof and no idea their contractor is under indictment. The carrier absorbs the loss and passes it into next year's premium for every policyholder. That is not a bug. It is a feature. The entire insurance restoration industry exists in the gap between what an adjuster can prove and what a contractor can document. Retail roofing sells you a product. Insurance roofing sells your insurance company a claim and hands you the paperwork. Once you see that, you cannot unsee it. And the question stops being how to open a roofing company and starts being which of the two economies you actually want to live in. So if the insurance model is this lucrative, why doesn't every roofer just do it forever? Let me tell you about the companies that tried. Let's talk about who actually built this model at scale and what happened to them. Because the pattern repeats. Between 2020 and 2023, the Texas Hail Belt, the corridor running from Amarillo through Dallas down to San Antonio, experienced 3 consecutive above-average storm seasons. Insurance carriers paid out billions in claims, and a specific class of roofing companies emerged to catch that money. Fast-growing storm chaser operations, often out of Colorado or Missouri. The pattern is remarkably consistent. Company opens in Colorado. Registers foreign LLC in Texas within 30 days of a major hailstorm. Rents temporary office. Hires local commission-based sales team. For 6 to 12 months, they close hundreds of jobs in the affected zip codes. They stack supplements aggressively. Revenue per crew runs 3 to 5 times industry average. Some grew from a single crew to 10 crews in 18 months. Revenue climbed from $300,000 to $10 million. Owners bought new trucks and new offices. Then, the Texas Attorney General's office started opening files. Class action complaints, fraud investigations tied to supplement inflation, forged adjuster signatures, and fabricated hail damage. By 2024, dozens of those companies had settled, dissolved, or been forced into bankruptcy. Their owners face civil penalties in the low millions. Some face criminal charges pending trial. That is the visible half of the story. Here is the invisible half, the one that never makes the news. Every one of those roofs came with a workmanship warranty. 5 years, 10 years, 25 years in some cases. When the roofing company dissolves, the warranty dissolves with it. The homeowner is left with a roof they paid for and no company to call when it leaks. Estimates from Texas Department of Insurance filings suggest tens of thousands of warranties across the state are now essentially worthless, attached to LLCs that no longer exist. There is no receiver, no successor entity, no state guarantee fund. The warranty was a promise made by a legal fiction that has since evaporated. When the roof leaks in year 4, the homeowner learns this the hard way. They pay a second contractor, usually a legitimate local one, to redo the work. That is the tale. On paper, the company was a $10 million operation. In reality, it was a $10 million lawsuit waiting for a court date. Now the second case. From a different corner of the industry. Large regional retail roofing consolidators. Between 2018 and 2022, private equity money flowed into roofing at unprecedented scale. Consolidators bought up small residential operators, layered them under national brands, and offered 0% financing to homeowners as a growth lever. The model looked bulletproof on a slide deck. Buy small companies at 4 to 6 times EBITDA, package them under a national brand, push financing to close bigger tickets. One publicly reported case involved a national roofing platform that raised over $300 million in equity between 2019 and 2022. By late 2024, valuations were reportedly cut by more than 60%. The underlying units, small residential companies that had been acquired, were still operating, but the debt stack sitting on top of them made every subsequent quarter harder to close. Then, interest rates rose. The 0% financing that homeowners had been signing became prohibitively expensive for the consolidator to underwrite. Ticket sizes dropped. Close rates dropped. Marketing spend stayed flat because contracts were signed. Working capital started evaporating quarter by quarter. By 2024, some of the largest names in residential roofing had cut staff by 20 to 30%. A few had entered restructuring. Others were quietly writing down goodwill against the small companies they had acquired at inflated multiples 3 years earlier. Two very different collapse patterns, one built on fraud arbitrage, one built on financial engineering. Both ended in the same place. Here is the structural observation. Roofing does not kill you with competition. Roofing kills you with two things: cash timing and liability tail. Cash timing means the gap between when you spend money on materials and labor and when the money for the job actually arrives in your account. Liability tail means the warranty and legal exposure that follows every roof you install, sometimes for decades, that never appears on your quarterly financials. Every roofing company that has failed in a memorable way in the last 10 years failed on one of those two dimensions. Or both at once. Both companies looked strong right before they broke. Revenue growing, trucks new, offices expanding. Their profit and loss looked healthy. Their cash flow told a different story. That is the tell. Roofing companies fail on cash flow, never on the income statement. By the time the profit and loss reflects the problem, the doors are already closing. They did not fail because the work was bad. They failed because the model was designed to move faster than accountability could follow. Now let's talk about what happens if you actually open one. In two versions. The version the franchise brochure sells you, and the version the numbers actually deliver. Say you open a roofing company today. You focus on retail residential. You are careful. You have a good crew, a clean truck, and 90 days of overhead in reserve. None of this is decoration. Every number here is a real number, taken from real filings, in a real market. Here is the optimistic scenario. Year 3, you close 40 roofs. Average ticket is $14,000. Gross revenue for the year is $560,000. At a retail residential gross margin of 22%, which is a strong year, you have gross profit of $123,000. Now subtract overhead, insurance certificates, truck payments, marketing spend at $400 per closed lead, office rent, software, bookkeeper, your own draw. By the time the numbers close out, you take home somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 for the year. In a good year, read that again, $60,000 to $80,000. After 3 years of building the business, buying the truck, hiring the crew, chasing the leads, closing the jobs, dealing with the callbacks, a senior manager at any legitimate company with a 2-year commute earns more than that. A savings account at a decent credit union pays comparable interest on capital deployed. That is the number. Not because you are bad at business, but because retail residential roofing is one of the most commoditized industries in American small business. That is the optimistic case. Same setup, but this time we let one variable move against you. Now let's do the realistic case. Year 2. One of your guys slips coming off a steep pitch. Broken leg, hospital stay, workers' comp claim. Six-figure medical and disability payout gets triggered. Your EMR climbs from 1 to 1.6. Workers' comp premium jumps from $24,000 a year to $38,000. Locked in for 3 years, minimum. That premium jump comes straight out of margin. Your effective margin drops from 22 to 17%. On $560,000 of revenue, that is $30,000 gone. Meanwhile, your bond eligibility for commercial work quietly evaporates. That door is closed for the next 3 years. You cannot walk into apartment complexes or municipal contracts. You try to pivot to insurance restoration to make up the margin gap. You take 3 storm chase jobs. One of them ends in a supplement dispute with the carrier. The dispute lasts 4 months. During those months, you owe your supplier $22,000. You owe your crew 4 consecutive payrolls. Your line of credit is already tapped. The lender who financed the truck starts calling. Your bookkeeper asks about the missed payroll tax deposit. Your crew starts asking why the checks are late. The insurance company that carries your workers' comp calls to remind you the premium is due in 2 weeks, the higher one, now, with your new EMR baked in. By the end of the quarter, you are functionally running a roofing crew and a legal problem at the same time. And only one of those two is producing revenue. You sell the newer truck to cover payroll. You put personal savings back into the business. You start missing your own draw. By year 4, you are still technically running a roofing company, but your net income for the year is negative $6,000. Your marriage is straining. That is the realistic scenario. Not because it is the most common outcome, but because every variable in it comes from a documented case, in every state, every year. Some roofing companies survive this, some do not. The ones that do share one trait. They understood, from the first day, what they were actually selling. That is the loop this business runs on. Not the loop of shingles onto asphalt. The loop of paperwork into payment. Remember at the start of this video, we said a roofing company is not really a construction business. So if you do decide to open one, remember the one thing that actually determines whether you succeed. It was never about how many shingles you can install. The people who thrive in this industry are not the ones with the best crew or the newest truck. They are the ones who understand what the business actually sells. The ones who read the workers' comp code before they hire the second employee. Who understand Exactimate before they take the first insurance job. Who know that the warranty they sign today is a liability that will sit on their name for the next 10 years. Long after the shingles are paid for. Because in the end, what a roofing company sells is not shingles. It is not labor. It is not even the roof itself. The roof is what the homeowner sees. The claim is what the carrier pays. And the paperwork underneath both is what the business actually is. That is the difference between an owner who lasts 30 years and one who disappears with the next storm.